everyone, Roger here. If you love real travel, the kind with good stories, practical tips, and no fluff, you're in the right place. Let's hit the road. Today I'm taking you on one of the most beautiful stretches of the Coast Starlight, from Los Angeles all the way up to Santa Barbara. In the next 25 minutes, you're going to see the train leave the busy rail yard north of LA, pass through agriculture fields with rows of crops and white-tinted greenhouses, glide right alongside US Highway 101, and then things get seriously breathtaking. We're going to run so close to the Pacific Ocean that it feels like we're flying over the water, with waves literally crashing just feet below the train. You'll see surfers catching waves, packed RV parks squeezed between the tracks and the beach, rugged mountains and hills on the other side, and that perfect cloudless California blue sky the whole way. I was saying, wow, out loud more than once. This is the kind of scenery you really can't experience unless you ride the Coast Starlight. So sit back, relax, and let's ride the rails together, all the way until we pull into beautiful Santa Barbara Station. Right after leaving LA Union Station, we're already in the middle of a busy rail yard. Look at all those metro trains lined up. It's a cool contrast before we hit the coast. Check out these double-decker Metrolink cars. They're huge. I was really impressed how smooth everything felt, even in the busy sections. Right after you leave the busy rail yard north of LA Union Station, the scenery starts to change pretty quickly. On the west side of the tracks, you'll see these rugged hills and mountains rising up. Those are the Santa Monica Mountains and the beginning of the Simi Hills. It's a cool contrast. One minute you're surrounded by the dense urban sprawl and rail infrastructure of Los Angeles, and the next you're looking at dry, chaparral-covered slopes and canyons. By the way, there are actually a couple of tunnels carved through these hills shortly after this point. I did film them, but I ended up cutting them out because the camera mostly captured complete darkness with almost nothing visible. So instead of showing a bunch of black screen, I kept the best open views for you. As we continue north, these hills give way to even more dramatic scenery, eventually leading us toward the coast again. It's one of those moments where you really feel the landscape shifting around you on the Coast Starlight. We passed through some pretty impressive agriculture zones. You'll see long rows of open fields with different crops, and then these big white or clear tent-like structures. Those are polytunnels or hoop houses. In this part of California, between Ventura and Santa Barbara, they mainly grow strawberries, leafy greens like lettuce and spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, and a lot of berries. The area is famous for strawberries. Ventura County is one of the biggest strawberry-producing regions in the whole country. Those tented structures are used to extend the growing season and protect the more delicate or high-value crops from wind, rain, or temperature swings. Inside them, you'll often find strawberries, tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, or even flowers and nursery plants. They create a mini greenhouse effect so farmers can get multiple harvests and better quality produce. It was cool to see how close the train gets to all this active farming. One minute you're looking at the ocean, the next you're gliding past these huge fields feeding so much of the country. Makes you appreciate where a lot of the fresh food on your table actually comes from. Quick stop at Oxnard Station, and then we keep rolling north with that beautiful coastline right beside us. Right after we leave Oxnard Station, the train enters Ventura and something really interesting happens. For a while, the tracks run extremely close to the coast, so close that there are actual houses, multi-story apartment buildings, and long rows of townhouses built right between the ocean and the Amtrak tracks. It's kind of wild. You're looking out the window and you can see people's backyards, balconies, and living room windows just a few feet away from the train. Some of these homes are literally beachfront properties, with the railway running right behind them. I kept thinking how unique it must be to live there, waking up to the sound of the ocean and the occasional train passing by. It's this really cool mix of residential life and scenic rail route, all in one. You don't see this kind of setup very often. Definitely one of the more memorable stretches on this part of the Coast Starlight.
Oh, look at that.
We're starting to see the Pacific Ocean on the left. And yes, I'm on the ocean side heading north. Best seat in the house.
Still very hazy.
Yeah. Oh, so close.
Look how close we get to the water. Sometimes the train is literally just feet from the sand and waves. This is why people call this one of the most scenic routes in the country.
You can see the starfish.
Yeah. There's no people here. It's not easy to access here. Seems like that. I think the one part is like military installation.
It's a very big state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another fun thing I noticed while riding along this stretch. Every now and then, you'd spot a few surfers out in the water, even on a regular weekday. This part of the coastline between Ventura and Santa Barbara is actually pretty well known among surfers.
Oh, surfing.
It's not as famous as Malibu or Huntington Beach further south, but it has its own loyal following. The waves here are often cleaner and more consistent than many people expect, especially during fall and winter when bigger swells come in. You'll see people paddling out right near where the train runs, just feet from the sand. It's kind of cool. One minute you're watching the surfers catching waves, and the next you're looking at the mountains on the other side. If you're into surfing, this stretch is definitely worth checking out. Some locals say the breaks around Ventura and Santa Barbara can be less crowded and more relaxed than the bigger Southern California spots. I definitely added it to my mental list for a future trip. Between Ventura and Santa Barbara, the views open up even more. Ocean on one side, mountains on the other. It's honestly breathtaking.
Way out there, you won't be able to see them because it's really hazy, but there's the Channel Islands. There's islands out there.
Yeah.
There's a national park out there. There's islands.
Can you break it there?
Like
a ferry or something?
I haven't been out there, but you won't be able to see them today. It's pretty foggy.
Yeah, it's foggy and hazy, yeah.
But anyway, they're out there.
Lots of people surfing. Is this really nice to surf the water?
It would be if there were waves.
Hey, something really surprised me while I was editing this footage. I expected the classic clink clank sound you always hear in train videos. You know, the rhythmic noise of steel wheels on the tracks. But when I listened back, it was surprisingly quiet. There was almost no track noise at all. Just the gentle hum of the train and the occasional conversation with the people sitting around me. Even when we were rolling right beside the ocean, the sound from the tracks was minimal. I think it's because the Coast Starlight uses pretty well-maintained track in this section, and the Superliner cars do a great job of insulating sound. It made the whole ride feel much smoother and more peaceful than I expected, almost like gliding rather than riding on rails. Have any of you noticed the same thing on your Amtrak trips? Was your train super quiet, or did you get the full classic clackety-clack experience? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious.
Oh, okay.
I started in Oregon.
Right.
I'm going all the way around. Now I have to go back to Oregon.
I
And then I get my car and my dog.
Right.
And I drive back to the Bay Area, to San Francisco,
Oh,
which is where I really shop.
right.
I'll be on the road for almost a month.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
27 days. I couldn't pass it up. It's too cheap.
No, exactly.
Anyway, well,
Yeah.
I'm just learning. That's why I'm taking so many pictures. I have to try all sorts of things.
Oh, that's the island he was talking about.
Fine, safe. I know. Safe.
very intelligent, very smart.
I know. Yeah, I know. Stay there.
You see, right between the train tracks and the ocean, there were quite a few RVs, vans, and cars parked up along the side of the road. There's this narrow strip of land sandwiched between the railway and the beach, and people were clearly using it as a prime spot to camp out or just enjoy the view. You'd see RVs parked nose to tail, some with chairs set up facing the water, and a few people just chilling right there with the waves crashing a few feet away. It looked like such a relaxed, low-key beach lifestyle, waking up to the sound of the ocean and the occasional train rolling by. I kept thinking how unique it must be to live or camp in that little corridor between the rails and the Pacific. Definitely one of those only in California, scenes you don't see every day.
Yeah.
For a good portion of this stretch, the Coast Starlight is actually running right alongside US Highway 101. You can literally see the cars and trucks zooming by on the highway just a short distance away while we're gliding along on the tracks, often much closer to the ocean than the road gets. It's kind of funny. You're watching people stuck in highway traffic, and here we are on the train with way better views, no traffic jams, and the Pacific Ocean right next to us. Sometimes the train even feels like it has the better seat in the house. Especially between Ventura and Santa Barbara, the tracks hug the coast tighter than the highway does in places. It really makes you appreciate traveling by rail. You get scenery and a relaxed ride that the cars on US Highway 101 just can't match.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your dining car. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that have a lunch reservation, keep in mind I have your name, you have a reservation, and I will call you by name to the dining car as soon as we are ready for you. Please do not come early to the dining car. You're going to want to. Don't do it. I'll call you as soon as we're ready. You have a reservation. I have your name. Sometimes we run a bit early. Sometimes you run a bit behind. So just listen up for your name. I guarantee I'll call it as soon as we're ready.
Somewhere along the way, the conductor came on the PA and announced that lunch was ready. Since I was riding in coach and hadn't pre-booked the meal, I decided to skip it. I think it was around $30 for lunch. Instead, I stayed right where I was in the Sightseer Lounge car. And honestly, the view became my lunch. The beautiful deep blue ocean stretching out on one side, with the yellowish Pacific Coast Highway running below us and winding along the hills on the other side, it was just stunning. The train was hugging the coastline so closely that the scenery felt like it was playing out on a giant IMAX screen. I sat there with a snack from my bag, sipping water, watching the waves roll in while the highway traffic crawled along. Look at this. We are literally almost flying over the water right now. The train is running so close to the edge of the ocean that it feels like the tracks are built on the beach itself. From my seat, it honestly looked like we were gliding just a few feet above the waves. I kept thinking this scenery is something most people will never get to experience unless they ride the Coast Starlight. You can't see it properly from the highway, and there's no easy public access to this stretch of coastline. It's one of those rare moments where the train gives you a completely unique perspective, a front row seat to the Pacific that you just can't get any other way. Seriously, breathtaking. We just passed a pretty big RV park right along the coast. It was completely packed. Row after row of RVs, campers, and vans all lined up facing the ocean. You could tell these folks were really enjoying the California coastal life. I kept thinking how nice it must be to wake up every morning with that view. The Pacific right outside your window, waves crashing, and that perfect blue sky with zero clouds. It looked absolutely gorgeous. It's one of those classic California scenes you don't see every day. People living the dream right between the railway and the beach. Honestly, it made me a little jealous for a second. What a spot to spend a few days.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. Okay, this part right here is something else. We're riding so close to the ocean that it genuinely feels like the train is flying over the water. The waves are literally crashing right below us. I mean, just a few feet away from the wheels. I was sitting there with my mouth open just saying, wow, out loud. The Pacific is right there, powerful and beautiful, and the train is gliding along the edge like it's on a cliff. It's one of those moments where you forget you're on a train and just feel like you're floating along the coast. Honestly, this is the kind of view that makes the whole Coast Starlight famous. You just can't get this perspective from the highway or anywhere else. Pure magic. All right, we're pulling into Santa Barbara Station now. You can already feel the change. The wide open coastal views are giving way to buildings, walls, a bit of graffiti here and there, palm trees lining the streets, and cars parked along the road. It's that nice transition from pure nature back into a charming California town. And there it is, turning the corner, Santa Barbara Station. It's a beautiful little Spanish-style station with those classic red-tiled roofs and white walls. Even from the train window, it has such a relaxed, welcoming vibe.
On the other side.
This is one of those stops that makes you want to get off and explore for a few hours. We'll be stopping here briefly. If you ever ride the Coast Starlight, Santa Barbara is definitely worth spending some time in. Next up, I'll show you the quick but beautiful stop at Santa Barbara Station and then continue north towards San Luis Obispo and beyond. Which part of the Coast Starlight are you most excited to see? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want more real Amtrak journeys every week. We're building this together. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. See you on the next travel adventure.